However, I feel that same about everything on the mine site. Avoiding getting screwed is the main goal of the mining procedure. Parker Schnabel, a young mining boss, set his sights on a crazy $40 million gold season in the Yukon's frigid wilderness. For Yuru, chasing that type of money is like daring calamity to strike. You won't believe it. Every malfunctioning machine felt like a ticking time bomb as winter approached and his crew was pushed to the limit. The problem is that it wasn't only mining going on behind the scenes. It was a matter of survival. Some claim that Parker jeopardized life, allegiance, and everything he had worked so hard to achieve in order to gain attention. A costly error, and a frozen disaster. The season began with lofty aspirations. Parker, who had recently achieved success, wanted to push the boundaries even farther. The issue is that we're currently using a large portion of our workforce to simply try to keep the facility supplied. I firmly believe that the facility should be shut down. The weird part comes next. Perhaps his greatest enemy was his ambition. There was a big issue, but he had a lot of land to mine. You see, digging into the Yukon dirt at will is not an option. It is as hard as concrete and frozen solid for the majority of the year. In order for the sun to melt the rich, gold-filled pay dirt underneath, miners must spend months preparing the ground by scraping off the top layers of worthless earth known as overburden. No one discusses how much preparation is required for this. You must be planning for months or perhaps a year in advance. And this was the first significant setback in Parker's season. As it happens, there is more to his early hardships. He acknowledged that he had made some bad choices. He knew he had nice gold in a section of ground he had called the elbow cut, but he hadn't prepared it in time. We started last year in a small nook. I'm referring to the elbow cut. The most sensible pit to remove next is this one. Now that the brief mining season was coming to an end, he had vast tracts of land that were still frozen solid and unsuitable for gold washing. Then it dawned on them. They were in serious danger. With several sites to tackle at once, the crew was already overworked. In addition to preparing a whole new cut for the upcoming season, they were attempting to extract gold from a particular region known as the Bridge Cut. Parker now required them to put everything else aside and concentrate on the frozen elbow cut, as if that weren't enough. Their plans are completely altered by this. They had to clear 2 feet of overburden before tearing into the layer of frozen pay dirt using enormous dozers equipped with enormous metal rippers on the back. As a result, we are searching for something that will serve as a temporary solution. Yes, well, she's here. We can examine it, go over it, and see what you think. Sweet too. Yes, let's investigate. The labor was tedious, challenging, and slow. Parker had to make a very costly decision, which added to the stress. He brought in another huge D11 dozer to help tear up the frozen ground more quickly. The expense of operating one of these devices will astound you. Every hour it burns a massive amount of diesel fuel. Just the petrol bill was outrageous. Spending $1 million on a machine to correct a mistake he had committed months earlier was a huge gamble. The season's first significant test was this one. His entire $40 million dream was now in jeopardy due to a catastrophe that started with a simple planning mistake. Parker and I are currently undergoing elbow cuts, which is quite costly when you consider it. This is the only way we can extract this gold this season, but you're operating a multi-million-dollar dozer that uses a lot of fuel. The race against the ice had begun with the arrival of the new monster dozer. They were constantly reminded of the amount of money they were wasting every hour by the sound of the enormous engines roaring as they tore into the permafrost. In reality, these circumstances are a conflict between nature and sheer force. The problem is that even one of the largest dozers in the world, the D11, has trouble breaking through frozen permafrost that has been there for thousands of years. Sometimes the machine would stop completely, shuddering against a particularly hard patch of ice, while the metal rippers would groan and howl. The staff was under pressure behind the scenes. Under the chilly Yukon sun, they were putting in long, tiring hours of work. On a good day, it's difficult to move massive machinery around, fuel them, and keep them operating. However, it is even more stressful to do it while aware that you are weeks behind schedule. Every malfunction, no matter how minor, seemed disastrous. Hours of valuable time could be wasted due to a hydraulic hose burst or an engine overheating, costing them thousands of dollars in lost gold. They had finally prepared enough ground at the elbow cut to begin sloughing after 3 exhausting days of relentless digging and ripping. Sloughing is the process of passing all of the pay dirt through Big Red, their enormous wash plant. This is the crucial time when all of the effort either pays off or results in a devastating letdown. Everyone watched the cell boxes in the hopes of spotting the telltale black sand and gold particles that indicated they were in a rich place as they began feeding the soil into the ravenous machine. Suddenly, just when they thought their luck was at its lowest, everything turned around. They cleaned up the elbow cut for the first time. You won't believe what they discovered either. The pan of gold weighed a much. The total when everything was weighed was $282.30. Oh, that much gold was worth around $740,000 at the time. The entire crew felt a tremendous sense of relief. Parker was ecstatic himself. "This is what they should have been doing all along," he said. All of a sudden it made clear. The long hours, the stress and the costly bet on the extra dozer were all worthwhile. This was the first concrete indication that they might be able to salvage the season and go back on pace to meet their enormous objective. Settling in and going after the big numbers. The spark that ignited Pierce Parker's crew was the first large gold weigh-in from the elbow cut. It was as if someone had flipped a switch. At the mine site, the atmosphere changed from one of stress and anxiety to one of energy and concentration. You see, nothing inspires gold miners more than the sight of a handful of heavy yellow gold. It serves as evidence that their efforts have not been in vain. Their morale completely changes as a result. The pressure was still there now, but it was a new pressure. The strain of failing had subsided. The pressure of opportunity was the cause. The new objective was to acquire as much of the rich ground through Big Red as possible before the Yukon winter permanently closed them down. They were aware that they were on fertile ground. This is where things start to go crazy. The group got to work with amazing efficiency and quickness. The enormous trucks were transporting pay soil from the elbow cut to the wash plant in a continuous loop. Big Red was going day and night, and the dozers were constantly moving dirt. The amazing level of coordination required to maintain an organization like this operating at full capacity is something that is rarely discussed. It resembles an enormous cacophonous ballet of monstrous machinery. The entire operation comes to a complete stop if a single component malfunctions, such as a truck tire going flat or a clogged wash plant. However, everything was operating flawlessly at the moment. After an especially successful sloughing week, they cleaned up again. This weigh-in was even more convincing evidence that their fortunes had changed. In a single week, 382.4 ounces of gold were produced. The haul was enormous. Enormous. Another significant step toward their objective. Good. Yes, good. We're supposed to be doing that. There we have it. Yes. Back in it. We've returned to our proper location. What does that provide us with? Thus we have 382.4 ounces for the week. They seem to be finding their rhythm at last. Remember nevertheless that the Yukon is a cruel master. The weather would throw them a curveball just when they were about to settle into a decent groove. The earth they had recently worked so hard to thaw could begin to freeze again in the event of an unexpected cold snap. The mine site might become a massive mud pit in the event of a strong downpour, rendering the heavy trucks immobile. Every one of these difficulties served as a reminder that they were engaged in a never-ending conflict and could not afford to take a break. Parker kept a close eye on the weather and encouraged his team to work harder and quicker since he knew that their window of opportunity could close at any moment. The race to the finish line turned into an obsession as the season's last weeks approached. The first hints of snow were dusting the mountain peaks, the nights were growing colder, and the days were growing shorter. They were in the homestretch and Parker knew it. In reality, they were making a deliberate effort to extract the most valuable areas of their land before it was too late. Now they needed every ounce of gold they could acquire. Nobody anticipated that attaining a $40 million target would still be extremely challenging, especially after their mid-season turnaround. Their ultimate gold total turns out to have more to it than that. Although we may only see the final number on television, the actual number is rather different. Parker's team extracted an astounding $5,425.40 ounces of gold by the end of this season. That haul was worth more than $14 million at the time, when gold was valued more than $2,600 an ounce. It was nonetheless a good week, 5,425.4 for the season. The insane portion comes next, and for the fans who pay close attention to every detail, it gets even more intense. The frequently discussed $40 million season objective may not apply to a single 12-month period. As you can see, these massive mining activities span several years. Parker probably set his $40 million target over the course of 2 or possibly 3 years of mining that specific area. This season's $14 million represented a huge portion of that sum and a significant step toward his ultimate objective. Therefore, even if he didn't reach $40 million in this one season, his amazing $14 million haul completely crushed his annual goals and positioned him in a prime position to reach his ultimate objective. For the entire team, that last weigh-in was a time of pure delight and weariness. They had persevered through a dreadful beginning, fought the icy terrain, and exhausted themselves. Their delight was to see that last huge number on the scale. Money wasn't the only thing involved. It was a triumph against the odds, demonstrating their diligence and Parker's unwavering determination. For him, it demonstrated that you could persevere and rise to the top even after making mistakes. And they weren't considering the difficulties as they prepared for the winter. They were already making plans for how they would return the next year to retrieve the remaining gold from the enormous amount of gold they had dug out of the ground. The rumors about the gold rush. What's actually happening? Now it's an amazing success story to watch Parker Schnabel and his team extract more than $14 million worth of gold from the earth. It's a story of triumphing against adversity. You know, fans of a hugely popular television program like Gold Rush are always speculating and making assumptions about what goes on behind the scenes. Every scene is examined by ardent fans online, and their debates raise some serious issues and crazy theories regarding the program. Fans refer to one of the most popular hypotheses as the maker's gold. The problem is that a significant portion of the show's enjoyment is derived from the drama of reaching a season objective. According to the hypothesis, producers may find a means to help a crew reach their huge dramatic goal if they are only a little bit short of it by the end of the show. The pressure from the TV network to give viewers a huge, satisfying ending is something that no one discusses. According to this notion, a tiny bit of gold might be added to a final weigh-in to improve the appearance of the number and produce a more thrilling conclusion. Some fans think that might happen, but it's a massive scandal to even mention. They question whether each and every gold speck we see on the scales originated on the ground during that season. The land deals are the subject of another, more in-depth theory. Not all of the ground that Parker mines is his. He notably rents a large portion of it from Tony Beets, another legendary figure from the Gold Rush. According to the episode, Parker gives the landowner a royalty or a portion of the gold he finds. There's more to the story though, that's what the fans believe. Anyway, the specifics of these arrangements are what actually raise a lot of questions. According to the fan idea, the royalty agreements are far more intricate than what is seen on television. Some of the ideas will surprise you. Fans question whether there are any hidden benefits. Does Parker receive a royalty discount, for instance, if he mines more than a specific quantity of ounces? Conversely, are there hidden consequences if he fails to reach a particular goal? There has occasionally been animosity, Tony, but one day I will be asking for a favor. As if things couldn't get any stranger, some fans believe that the adversaries may be more amiable in real life than they portray. Perhaps they exaggerate the drama for the cameras because their business transaction benefits both of them so much, but the competition still makes for fantastic television. The weird part comes next. The lost gold is the subject of the most ludicrous controversy that people talk about. The idea is that not all of the gold they uncover is the same as what we see on the show. According to this theory, the miners may actually be performing smaller, less spectacular cleanups that are never captured on camera. They may discreetly sell this off-camera gem to private purchasers. Why would they act in this way? The problem is that it would provide them with a consistent flow of income to cover expenses like food and fuel without needing to be a major plot point for a television show. Additionally, it would imply that the enormous totals we see at the end of the season may not be accurate. Nobody anticipated the fact that their actual income may surpass the astounding figures we witness on the show. There are even theories regarding the crew, as if that weren't enough. On TV, we see a core handful of individuals, but a massive mining operation like Parker's needs far more assistance. Other workers, truck drivers, and mechanics are probably not captured on video. This raises concerns regarding the real pay of the crew members we observe. Do they receive a genuine percentage of the gold, or are they only paid a salary? Since the show doesn't reveal these specifics, viewers are free to use their imaginations. These hypotheses offer a whole new level of excitement to the high-stakes business of gold mining, regardless of whether they are true or just idle chatter. However, it's important to remember that there are more than simply fan speculations concerning potential current events. Real on-camera explosions that were genuinely sensational at the time have been a part of the show's lengthy and chaotic history. The time of the Hoffman gang and their infamous failures is what no one discusses these days. You see, Todd Hoffman and his team of rookies were the main attraction years before Parker was the king of the Klondike. A disastrous journey to Guyana in South America was their biggest scandal. With lofty hopes of discovering gold mountains in the wilderness, they departed Alaska. After returning, we pack up our belongings and leave. Why don't you have a look at the map and mark the locations we wish to test, Freddy? Our target is $60 per yard. Here is where we should look for it. The weird part comes next. It failed completely and utterly. Almost no gold was discovered. The crew was unhappy and their equipment kept breaking down in the heavy muck. It was a startling season for fans, like witnessing a train crash in slow motion. With everyone discussing how a crew could be so ill-prepared and make so many poor choices, it turned into a major scandal in the fan community. One of the greatest failures in the history of the show is still that Guyana season. An illustration from real life of how gold fever can lead to a costly and unproductive road. As if that weren't enough, the Hoffman crew was also involved in the first mutiny on the program. It gets crazy at this point. A crew member named Jimmy Dorsey abruptly left the team back in season 1. Nor did he simply leave in silence. On camera, he expressed his opinion that Todd Hoffman's leadership was appalling and that the entire organization was a chaotic mess. You won't believe how much drama it brought about. For the first time, a staff member publicly attacked their employer on the show, breaking ranks. For several viewers who already believed the crew was in over their heads, everything suddenly made sense. This was an actual scandal that revealed the conflicts and annoyances that exist in real life behind the scenes. The history of the show's previous rivalry turns out to have more depth. There was more to the well-known conflict between a youthful Parker Schnabel and an older, more seasoned Todd Hoffman than meets the eye. It culminated in one of the most iconic events in the history of the gold rush. A wager for 100 ounces of gold in real life. Yes, a wager that at the time was far over $100,000. The producers didn't come up with this. To see who could mine the most gold was a true challenge between the two men. This alters everything since, with actual money at stake, it transformed their on-screen battle into a huge public wager. The high-stakes world we live in today was made possible by these historical occurrences, which included crew mutinies, public wagers, and jungle failures. They serve as a reminder that the drama surrounding the gold rush has always been based on actual dangers, mistakes, and scandals. Therefore, was Parker pursuing fame or gold? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. For more startling Goldfields realities, hit the like button and subscribe.